Alright, hello. My name is Isaac Ostrom. Today I'm going to show you how to float a shower stall for tile installation. Now, floating is one method of preparation for a shower to install tile. There's a couple different methods you can use. A lot of do-it-yourselfers and handyman will do like a hardy backer installation, where basically they're just fastening hardy backer board or wonder board, some kind of cement board, straight to the sheetrock. The problem with that is, one, wherever you have a seam, you're not going to have correct reinforcement. Now you can put fiberglass tape on there, but it doesn't have the strength. If there's a lot of shift or settling in the building, you'll end up with cracks in all your seams where the sheets of hardy backer come together. As you can see here, with the floating, we start with tar paper, which is this. It's just a light-duty tar paper. They call it a cleavage membrane. It waterproofs, and then also it separates the tile installation somewhat from the drywall. So it's basically a self-contained unit that is able to support itself. So if anything's moving on the sheetrock, the tile system is actually a one solid unit. So then we staple our lath. This isn't chicken wire, it's actually stucco netting. You don't want to use chicken wire. It looks similar, but it's much more difficult to work with. You'll just have a heck of a time stapling and fastening it. It doesn't lay flat. So you can get your stucco netting from any tile shop or stucco supply. That stucco netting, you can see it's reinforced around the corners. So there's no break at the corners. So you're going to have really nice reinforced corners. Any place where there's a seam, this mortar bed, this float is really going to be one solid unit. So aside from the structural and function of the tile system being better floating, the other thing we can also do is we're able to plumb up and straighten the walls when we float a mortar bed. Now if you fasten hardy backer directly to the sheetrock or studs or whatever, it's just going to follow whatever framing has been done before. And you know, we all know that if you've dealt with the trades, that framing isn't always perfect and walls aren't always plumb and straight. As you can see, if you get in on this bubble, I don't know if you can see it, but we're probably a good, we're almost 3/8 out of plumb just on this wall alone. This wall is even worse. This exterior wall, sometimes exterior walls can be really bad. Here I'm almost a 1/2 inch out of plumb. So these walls really aren't straight, and by floating the walls we're going to be able to get everything plumb so that all our cuts on the insides are going to be perfect, and when you look down the tile installation, everything's going to be perfectly flat. There's not going to be any bulges or bows. So that's why floating is all in all a better installation. And for any contractors who want to learn how to float, you should probably learn how to do it, because most reputable building general contractors will want a tile guy who can float a shower. So there's many advantages over using a hardy backer installation. So as you can see, we have our hot waterproofing has already been done. We have our grain board sheetrock, which is installed behind the tile system, and that's just like sheetrock that's fastened to the studs. And then we have our cleavage membrane, our tar paper, and now we are fastening our lath to that. And what we use is just a basic staple gun. We got our snips to cut the wire. We got our level, or our tape, so we can measure, you know, the size of the lath that we need to put in here. And we'll get the rest of the lath up, and then we'll get going on the mud here. So we're just going to mix the water in so that it comes to a nice even consistency. You don't want it too loose where it's runny, but you don't want it too thick where it's hard to work with. Kind of a cookie dough consistency. Okay, now that we have the mud mix, like I said, it's consistency just like you would have like a brick mortar. You don't want it too loose, you want it to kind of stand up by itself, but not too stiff or it gets really hard to work with and spread up on the walls. Basic tools we use, I use a hawk trowel that'll get the mud on there and then we can get it up on the wall. I use these cement finishing trowels. You can get these at any home goods place. These are kind of a specialized tool that you probably will only find at a tile shop. I believe Home Depot used to sell them, but I haven't seen them there in a while. They come in a set, and these are used for once we get the mud up for screeding the mortar off the wall. You'll see me do that in a second here. And then you need a good level, 4-foot or a 6-foot level will do the trick. So I'm going to start getting some mud up on the wall. First thing I do is get about a 1/4 inch or so of mortar up on the wall. I've already started here. I'll do one wall and then I'll put my screed strips in there. And as soon as I get the mud on this wall, I'll show you how to put the screed strips in. So we'll get going. Alright, so now we're putting our first coat of mortar up on the wall. I'm using my rock and just putting little bits on at a time. Don't try to put too much up at once. Just take little scoops, put it right up on the wall, semi-smooth it out, and we're ready to put the screed strips in. These are redwood lattice pieces. They're just thin 1/4 inch pieces that come in 8-foot lengths. You can get them at any place that has lattice. We use these, we embed them into the mortar and then screed off of them. So I put them up into the mortar and take my 6-foot level and then just gently tap it in till you get a nice plumb surface. Just put the bubble in the middle and it'll be all good. So this one needs a little tapping up top. And that's that. So I'll continue this, I'll let this sit, and I'll do this wall, then this wall, then this wall. I'll get all my redwood in, and then I'll come back, put another coat of mortar on, and screed it off. Alright, so now we have our first coat of mud up, and we have our floating strips installed. The mud is starting, this is the first wall I did, so it's already starting to set up. It's got a nice firmness setting up to it. So now all we need to do is put another coat of mud on there, and then we'll screed off against these strips with our straight edge. So we're just going to go just like that, and we'll screed all the mud off. And now these strips are nice and plumb and straight, so our wall is going to end up being the same way. I just want to re-emphasize why it's important to float. If you look at the existing wall right here, you can see the gap in between. We have a big bow in this wall, and we're still out of plumb here. So if we were to put hardy backer up, our tile would be doing that same thing, and it just makes for a funky install. This floating is going to make it turn out really nice. Alright, so now we're putting our second coat of mortar up on the wall. And we just want to get it so it's a little bit past our float strips here. So get a little bit of mud up here, just enough, kind of rough. Just try to get it close. Doesn't have to be perfect because we're going to screed it off. Now you get the appropriate size screeding edge. Now notice how I'm going side to side with it. You don't want to just drag it up the wall. What it's going to do is try to carry the mud with it, and it'll create voids and it'll peel off. So just go side to side, and you end up with a nice flat plumb surface here. So we'll continue to do the rest of these walls. Don't worry about taking the strips out. We'll do that at the very end. So now we got the walls all screeded off. Everything's getting nice and straight. So now we just need to pull the float strips out. The key to doing this is you take your margin trowel and score just along the edge. Don't go all the way through the float because then it'll want to peel all the mortar behind the float strip. You just want to peel the float strip out. So you just kind of score it so it won't, when you pull it, it won't pull any of the wall off. Go all the way along it. It's nice and easy. And then just kind of pry it out and it should just pop right out. And so that's all that we need to do there. So we'll go ahead and take out the rest of the float strips here, and then all we need to do is fill them back in with more mortar, and we'll fill in any imperfections and rub it down with the final float. So we'll get the rest of these pulled out. Okay, so the last thing we have to do now is just kind of rub down the float, make it nice and smooth. We went ahead and put mortar to fill in our float strips, and then I use one of these floats. You can use a wood float, and basically you're just going to rub it and kind of smooth everything out. Don't push down too hard so that it digs the float out, but just go real lightly over everything, and it'll smooth it out real nice. If there's any little holes or anything, you can just take a little bit of mortar and put it in there, rub it down. But this is going to give you a really nice setting surface here. So that's about it on the float. You can see we got a nice straight plumb smooth wall. All our corners are plumb, so all our cuts are going to be exactly the same. You can look down the wall and it's going to be completely flat. It's waterproof. You know, I could really guarantee this installation for they'll last 100 years. You know, the plumbing fixtures will go out before the tile does. So it's now about 4 o'clock. We started here about 7, so it was quite a long day. But this particular shower stall is kind of custom. It had this existing glass block wall which we had to work around. It had this half wall, it had the pony wall, it had a bench and niche and another window back here. So a normal 3x5 shower stall we probably could have had done in about 3 or 4 hours. This one took a little bit longer because it was just a lot of different angles and whatnot. But if you have a good helper, someone who can mix the mortar for you and just kind of clean tools, hand you stuff, it makes a huge difference. I hear a lot of tile guys complain how they don't like the float, and a lot of the reason is they try to do it themselves and it really just beats you up. You're carrying a lot of mortar, you're in and out of the water, washing tools, and just up and down, back and forth. So a good helper, even if it's somebody who can just hand you stuff and clean tools for you, goes a long ways when you have to do some floating. So this is basically ready for tile. Tomorrow we'll come in, and the mortar is still going to be soft enough that you can shape it with a straight edge or a trowel if there's any little imperfections. So we'll be able to get on this tomorrow and start setting some tile.